2017 Spring Benchmark, problems 41 through 54. So number 41, which of the following equations is represented by the graph above? Now when I look at this graph, I notice three things. There's an x-intercept at -2, there's one at +2, and there's a y-intercept at -4. And since they gave me equations, I'm going to go ahead and plug it into my calculator and see which one has all of those things. So let's graph it. Now this one is not crossing at the right numbers, so it is not answer choice A. Let's try the next one, 2x squared. I graph it. This one has an origin as its vertex, so that's not B either. So let's try the next one, 4x squared minus 2, and hit graph. That one is not crossing at the right x-intercept, so it can't be C. Let's try answer choice D, x squared minus 4. When I hit graph this time, it is crossing at -2 and +2, and my y-intercept is -4, so it would be answer choice D. Number 42. The number of stores opened by a coffee company can be modeled by the exponential function graphed on the grid, where x is the number of years since 1992. So I think it's important to highlight what your variable is representing. Based on the graph, which statement does not appear to be true? So we're looking for something that is not true. I like to circle it, have arrows pointing at it so I don't forget. So let's see. F says that the coffee company had opened 400 stores by the end of 1992. So the end of 1992 is right here. That is 400 stores, so that's true. The reason this is representing 1992 is because this is the number of years since 1992. It's been 0 years, so it would still be 1992. G, the coffee company opened 100 stores in 1 year. So when I look between here to here, it looks like it probably went up between 400 and 500, so I can see that one being true. Let's look at the next one. Every year, the number of stores in the company open increased by 25%. Now that's kind of hard to figure out, so let's look at the next one. Since 1992, the coffee company has opened 250 stores each year. Well, when I look right here, it doesn't look like it only went up 250, and between 2 and 3, it definitely went from 600 to 800, so I know that one is definitely not true. And since we are looking for something that's not true, that means my answer has to be J. Number 43. An organization has a monthly budget of X dollars. So X is talking about the number of dollars, that's their budget. Every month, $2,070 is spent on salaries. 1/4 of the remaining budget is spent on monthly activities. Which function can be used to find the amount in dollars spent on monthly activities? So we are trying to write an equation for the amount in dollars, that's what my f of x has to be talking about, and we're spending this on monthly activities. Now they said that the organization has a budget of X dollars, so this is the amount of money that they can possibly start off with. Then they said every month $2,000.70 is spent on salaries. So whatever their budget is, they have to take out $2,070 so they can pay the people that are working for them. After that, they said 1/4 of the remaining budget is spent on monthly activities. And this is what we are concerned about. We're writing the equation for it. So if I take this thing and I want 1/4 of it, that's the same thing as dividing it by 4. So the one that makes the most sense would be answer choice D. Number 44. The graph of the quadratic function g is shown on the grid. The coordinates of the x-intercepts, the y-intercept, and the vertex are integers. So what they're telling me right there is that they are actually crossing at pretty numbers instead of crossing at like decimals or fraction numbers. Then they ask, what is the maximum value of g? Okay, I know that maximum actually means the highest value. So when I'm looking at this problem, maximum to me as quadratics also means the vertex point. This is the highest point on the graph, so that is my maximum value. Now, when they actually want just the value, not the ordered pair, they are talking about how high this equation goes. It goes all the way up to 9. That's the maximum value. So that was number 44. 45. The table shows some ordered pairs that belong to a quadratic function h. What is the range of h? So I'm going to start this problem a couple of different ways. First of all, when I see range in the problem, I know that we are doing doctor XY, range is talking about Y values. So this is the number, the side that I need to be looking at. Remember that h of x, anything like that, does mean y equals. So if I look at my numbers, it goes 41, 17, 1, negative 7, negative 8, negative 7. The numbers start to repeat right here and then keep going in both directions. So this is the middle of my graph. Now, how we did this whenever we learned it in class was to compare our y values to negative 8. It doesn't matter which direction you go, from here to the left or here to the right, but you're leaving from the vertex. If I move to the left, my numbers are increasing. So that actually means all of my numbers that are greater than or equal to negative 8, which is answer choice C. Now, something else that I haven't tried before, so I'm just checking to see if this thing would work. If I go into Stat Edit, they did give me a table, so I can plug in all my values. And I can do my y values, so 41, 17, 1, negative 7, negative 8, and negative 7 and positive 1. Now, when I go to Stat Calculate, this is a quadratic, so I'm going to select number 5. And I can write my equation, writing it in as y is equal to 1x squared minus 6x plus 1. Now let's go ahead and look at that on our calculator and graph it. This time, it's actually a little bit easier for me to see that the lowest value is negative 8 and my arrows are pointing up. That's why it should be greater than or equal to negative 8. Number 46. A bag contains 18 coins consisting of quarters and dimes. The total values of the coins is $2.85. Which system of equations can be used to determine the number of quarters Q and the number of dimes D in the bag? So I know what my variables are representing. Now, going back to this problem, they said there's 18 coins consisting of quarters and dimes. So if Q is my number of quarters and D is my number of dimes, when I add them up all together, there should be 18 of them. So right away, I get rid of G and I can get rid of J. Okay. Between the other two, those are talking about how much each coin is worth. Now, a quarter is talking about 25 cents, so I should have 0.25 times my quarter and 10 cents for every dime, and when you add up all of that, it equals $2.85. So that's why this one should be answer choice H. Okay. Number 47. What are the solutions to this equation? Now, I know that solutions really mean that we are looking for x-intercepts a lot of the time, especially if I see something squared that lets me know it's a quadratic, but this is not in a format that I can just graph. And if you look at the answer choices, some of them look kind of strange, so I'm going to show you two different ways to do this. The first method I would try, take your answer choices and plug them in for x, see if it gives you 32. So I'm going to do 2 times 3 minus 7, and I want to square this thing. That ends up giving me 32. So that is one answer. 3 is a solution. Let's try plugging in 11. So I plug in 11. That one also gave me 32. So even just by knowing that a solution means you can take those numbers and plug it in, so 2 times 3 minus 7 squared does equal 32. That's true. And 2 times 11 minus 7 squared also equals 32. If you know what it means to be a solution, right away you can answer this question. Now here's what you are technically supposed to do, or one of the ways that you can do to solve this. We've had a hard time with these kind of problems. So the first thing you would do is divide both sides by 2 to get x minus 7 squared by itself, and that equals 16. Then from there, you could take the square root of each side, but remember that x minus 7 is equal to 4 for that square root, but the square root of 16 is also negative 4. So what it really does is create two different equations. And if I finish solving, so I add 7 to each side, that gives me x equals 11. And on this one, when I add it, that gives me x equals 3. So that's how I got those numbers, but see how much easier this was. When you see solutions, try plugging in numbers in place of x. Number 48. The quadratic functions q and w are graphed on the same coordinate grid. The vertex of the graph of q is 18 below the vertex of the graph of w. Which pair of functions could have been used to create the graphs of q and w? When I look at my answer choices, every single one of these answer choices has the same thing for w. So obviously, that's what that equation has to be. It's just x squared. So go back into the problem. They said the vertex of the graph of Q is 18 units below the vertex of the graph of W. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in my W value. That one's x squared. It starts at the origin. As whenever you start adding or subtracting numbers, that's when it moves your quadratic up or down. So if I want it to be 18 units below that vertex, for Q of x, I would take the same equation, but I would subtract 18 from it, which is going to give me answer choice J. Now, if you tried plugging in answer choices, like if I did x squared minus 18, you can't exactly see that completely on your picture, so you can zoom out. So if I want to zoom out, hit enter. You can see it a little bit better. You can maybe tell that it kind of looks like it would be below that origin. You would have to count it on your own by looking at or drawing yourself a picture, so that only kind of helps you. You really have to remember what adding and subtracting a number does to your equation. Number 49. Which graph represents a function with a domain of all real numbers greater than or equal to -7 and less than 2? So if you are looking for the domain, the first thing you need to do is write down Dr. XY. Domain is talking about x values. Now when they say all real numbers greater than or equal to -7 and less than 2, what I would suggest you do is go ahead and draw in your domain lines. Domain is vertical lines, range is horizontal. So I'm going to draw one in for each one of these on A. That one went from -2 to +7 instead of -7 and +2, so that's not right. This one, my x values are -3 and +2. Those numbers don't match. For answer choice C, this one has -4 and +1 for the x values. That's not right. And finally, when we get to D, that one has -7 and it has +2. Those are the two numbers that they mentioned, so that would be my solution. Now, when I was grading some of your tests, I noticed that a lot of people would draw in the right lines and then look at the wrong numbers. So I want to kind of show you how this could compare if you had your domain lines written in as well. So let's say you're not very good at domain and range, but you understand that I'm supposed to be drawing in the smallest box possible. Once you draw in your boxes for each one, if you know you're doing domain, which is x values, you would look at the x-axis to find your numbers. If you are looking for the range, that's when you would look at the y numbers. Now this one did have the range right values, but that's on the y-axis, which is why it did not actually give me the answer for what we were looking for. So it should just be D. All right. Number 50. All right. A graph of f of x equals 6x squared minus 11x plus 3 is shown on the grid. What are the zeros of f? Okay, there's my vocabulary word. I know that a zero is talking about an x-intercept. Now, when you're looking at this picture, we've got two x-intercepts, and they said zeros. So we've got two of them. It can't be f and it can't be h. Now, looking at G, that one says that it's at 2 and +9, which would be way over here. So that doesn't make any sense. If you're at 1/3, that means you're between 0 and 1. When you're at 2/3, that's 1 1/2. Well, that one does look like it fits. So it would be answer choice J. All right, 51. The starting annual salary for an office worker at a company is $29,000. If the company awards an annual increase of 6.2%, which graph models the situation after the office worker receives X annual increases? Okay, so they're going to have an annual salary, and they said the starting is $29,000. So looking at A, that one starts at $29,000, but C starts at $5,000. So it's gone just from that. This one also starts at $29,000. This one does not. So I'm just stuck between A and B. Now, if you're increasing by 6.2%, should your amount go, like on example number B, or letter B, it goes from $29,000 all the way up to like maybe $47,000 between 1 year. Well, that seems like a lot more than just 6.2% to me. 6.2 would make a lot more sense if it's going for $29,000 up just a little bit, so A would be the best answer. 52. The graph of f of x equals x squared is shown on the grid. So this is my parent function of a quadratic. Which statement about the relationship between the graph of f and the graph of g, which is g equals 7x squared, is true? Anytime that they want you to compare two equations, go to your calculator, type in both of them, so I've got x squared and I have 7x squared, and see what happens. They will graph in the same order. So here's x squared, and there is 7x squared. Now I know I forgot to zoom back in my equation, so let's do it again. X squared and 7x squared. It definitely got a lot narrower. So G was narrower than the graph of f. Number 53. A toy is made up of cylindrical rings stacked on a base as shown in the diagram. The diameter of ring 1 is 87% of the diameter of the base. For ring 2 through ring 7, the diameter of each ring is 87% of the diameter of the ring following directly below it. The diameter of the base is 5 inches. Which function can be used to find the diameter of the inches in ring R, where 1 is less than or equal to R, which is less than or equal to 7? Well, I got cross-eyed just now reading that, but it's actually not saying anything that difficult. They said that we've got a diameter of 5 inches for the base. So this is actually our starting amount. If you look at your answer choices, these are talking about exponential equations. For exponentials, your starting amount needs to go on the outside of your parentheses. Now they said the diameter of the ring is 87% of the diameter of the base. So we need to make sure we can take 87% and divide that thing by 100, and that gives us 0.87. So that actually means that we should have A. Our equation is 5 times 87, because it's going to be 80% of it, R times. Last question. Number 54. The graph of an exponential function is shown on the grid. Based on the graph, which statement about the function is true? So I know I'm looking for something that's true. The range is the set of all real numbers less than 0. Okay, when you are talking about range, Dr. XY, range is talking about y values, and range is also lowest to highest. So if I go from the lowest, it looks like my lowest y value is 0. It does not have a highest point because it's going up forever. So the range is not going to be less than 0 because my entire picture is above 0. The domain is the set of all real numbers greater than -4. Well, when you are looking for domain, this is when you draw on your lines from left to right. There is no left boundary because the arrow is pointing up and to the left forever. There's no right boundary because it's going out to the right forever. So the domain is actually all real numbers. H. The range is the set of all real numbers greater than